During the Oscars this past weekend, there were a number of speeches that brought up the issue of diversity and racism within Hollywood. Now, it's unsurprising, especially when you consider the fact that Oscars So White was a hashtag that was trending weeks prior to the Oscars actually taking place. And that's because not very many, or actually no, black actors were nominated for any of these awards. So there was a lot of anger as a result of that. Now, Chris Rock decided to do the exact opposite of what Will Smith or Jada Pinkett Smith decided to do. He hosted the Oscars. He did not boycott it, and he gave his reasons for why he did it. Now, he used his platform as a way of raising awareness about racism within Hollywood, and of course, that led to a lot of mixed reactions. Now, let me tell you exactly what he said during his 10-minute monologue. He says, "I counted at least 15 black people in that montage," said Rock after he took the stage following an opening montage of films from 2015. He went on to call the Oscars the White People's Choice Awards. In addressing the Oscars So White controversy, Rock said he decided not to boycott the ceremony, saying he thought about it real hard, but the last thing I need is to lose another job to Kevin Hart. Jada boycotting the Oscars is like me boycotting Rihanna's panties. I wasn't invited. There's
Okay,
more, but let's stop there.
So that's a really funny line, but the monologue was already so awkward, and I don't mean awkward in any slight to Chris Rock. It's just he was hitting everybody. He was hitting white folks, he was hitting black folks. He was hitting everybody. That by the time he got to Rihanna's panties, everybody was like, oh. and he actually, I think he stumbled a little bit on that line, which made it even more awkward. You're like, wait, why are we inside Rihanna's panties? Like, how did we get here?
I thought that line thankfully led to a little comedic relief, because
yeah, it's actually a really funny line.
It was a super funny line. But what I did notice is throughout the award ceremony, he seemed to be playing both sides a little bit. Like,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I give him a tremendous amount of credit for being the host of the Oscars and straight up calling Hollywood racist. But at the same time, there were moments where I was like, it seems like he's playing both sides because he doesn't want to bite the hand that feeds, which, by the way, who would want to bite the hand that feeds in cases like this?
Well, no, but to be fair to Chris Rock, maybe that was his intention, to make fun of everybody.
Maybe. Okay, so let me give you more of his monologue, and you can decide for yourself. "We had real things to protest in the 50s and 60s. We were too busy being raped and lynched to care who won Best Cinematographer. When your grandmother is swinging from a tree, it's hard to care about the best documentary foreign short."
See, that right there, that really crystallizes exactly what Chris Rock did last night, because the juxtaposition is humorous, but it's hard to laugh because you just mentioned rapes and lynchings,
right?
And your grandmother swinging from a tree. But sometimes it's the job of the comedian to make you uncomfortable. So what he did there was powerful. In the guise of a joke, he reminded people, like, black folks have gone through some stuff in this country. Now, you want to close your eyes to it, it makes you uncomfortable. Too bad, I got an audience here, and I'm going to take advantage of it to remind you. Now, on the other hand, that's also partly a dig at African Americans protesting the Oscars.
Yes, which is why I brought up the point about him kind of playing both sides. Like, don't get me wrong, what he did was good, and overall, I'm behind him, right? But yeah, it is a dig at people who are protesting the lack of recognition that black actors and actresses get, and I don't think that that's necessary.
Mm-hmm. No, look, I'm not going to nitpick his editorial decisions there.
Yeah.
Because I might agree with some of it, I might not agree with some of it, but at least he had balls, right?
Yeah.
He went in both directions, and he went pretty hard in both directions. And when you talk lynchings, I'm no longer in a mood to laugh, right? So it kind of, for me, the comedic element, the minute he said that, went out of the room, right? Mm-hmm. But then I was listening, man. Boy, he had our attention. And so he chose kind of a bold path. In some ways, I don't know if I'm giving him too much credit here, but it reminded me of the Stephen Colbert, White House Correspondents' Dinner speech, where he just went right after the establishment, and everybody in the room hated it.
I do remember that.
But it was so funny, even though the room was so tense, right? And more than being funny, it was courageous.
Yeah, so he touched on other things as well I want to get to in just a second, but here's a little more of his monologue. He says this year the in memoriam package is just going to be black people who were shot by cops on their way to the movies. That's also a strong statement, obviously. And he says, "You're damn right Hollywood is racist. Hollywood is sorority racist. We like you, Rhonda, but you're not a Kappa. We want opportunity."
Okay, so let me explain. I actually that's my favorite line, right? So I like that he reminded people of black people getting shot, going to the movies and going everywhere else. Again, there's people at home. I got the sense, and I could be wrong, that even well-intentioned white people were thinking, "Okay, I got it, enough." But I'm glad he pressed that button, okay? Because that's what starts conversations like this one, where we all learn a little bit more. But the sorority line is great because he's like, they're not racist like the Klan. He explained they're not outward racist, but they're racist as in this is the one we want in our sorority and this is the one we don't. And if you're on that side, sad day for you. But he's like, look, all we're looking for is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So that was really, to me, poignant.
Yeah, there's a way, I think his successful way of pointing out how racism has kind of transformed throughout the decades, right? It's not as overt as it used to be. It's not as violent in some cases as it used to be. But it hides in the way we do certain things. And I like that he pointed that out.
But either way, you're still not in the club, right? So, JR, I knew you wanted to get it in here.
I didn't watch, so I mean, take that for what it was. Not because I was boycotting, because I never watched the Oscars. But
You started your boycott of the Oscars many years ago.
yeah, because I've tried watching it multiple times. Oh, Oscar party, and then I end up being like Anna at a Super Bowl party. I'm like, what the fuck am I still here for? But I hear you. But sometimes it goes outside of what the normal thought process is. We don't like that CNN just tries to play it down the middle and go, well, some say the Cowboys won, like the same analogy used, and some say the Redskins won. But I mean, you decide. I mean, if take a stance, dude. And yeah, it was brave, but you hit everyone. It's like those people on Twitter that go, I'm tired of you social justice warriors. I mean, which one is it? There's racism, or there's exclusionary tactics, there's biases, but then at the same time, oh, you guys stop complaining. Now, maybe this is a more heightened example, but Rosa Parks, yeah, you should be able to sit where you want on the bus, but at least they let you ride. That kind of seemed to be the tone from what I'm hearing. Again, I didn't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
So which way is it going to be?
So your statements are both fair and unfair. It's fair. Then he brought out Stacey Dash, who's a conservative douchebag, and it's like they could have done that for just comedic purposes, and then kind of poking fun at her without her even recognizing. She didn't even say a word, right? It was super awkward, again, because nobody knows who Stacey Dash is, unless you're knee-deep in politics like us, and we're like, oh, what's she doing on there, right? Yeah. But afterwards, he took a picture with her, and he seemed very cordial with her, like, hey, this is part of what's going on. On the other hand, look, I think he's well within his rights to do the joke that he did on Will Smith, where it's like, okay, well, you didn't get a nomination this year, okay, but you did get $20 million for Wild Wild West.
I know, look, I get
right?
that.
That's a fair joke, man.
But to say, like, well, you're a highly profitable actor, and as a result, you're not allowed to make any statements about, the lack of recognition of the black community within the Oscars, I think that's a ridiculous statement to make. Like, okay, so he's rich, he's made money in Hollywood. That doesn't mean that he doesn't notice certain ills within, Hollywood and how he should point it out.
I'm so torn on this because on the one hand, if I was Will Smith, I wouldn't have protested this year because he was in a movie, he could have gotten a nomination this year and he didn't. So that seems like more like sour grapes. I would have been more likely to protest if I wasn't in a movie this year. You see what I'm saying? If I wasn't up for one of the awards, because then it seems like, well, why didn't you give it to me? I'm black, you should have given it to me. That doesn't feel good, right? On the other hand, okay, now I'm being Chris Rock. On the other hand, okay, so a lot of folks said, hey, this isn't right. And you know what happened? The Oscars responded by making the Oscars the most black Oscars I have ever seen, okay? It was one black presenter after another. It was more jokes about, this Oscars so white. I mean, they would not stop for like the first hour and a half. It's like, Oscars are white and it's wrong. Okay, Kevin Hart came out. Everybody came out and said it. So, hey, look, they did what sometimes Republicans do. Like they complain so much that they get people to react and go, okay, right? So here, people said, hey, you know what, this ain't right, until they got the Oscars to go, okay, we'll make every other presenter black, and we'll keep making fun of ourselves. Well, in a sense, mission accomplished. Everybody is talking about it, and everybody is aware of the issue.
So you'd hope the next step would be, what are you going to do now? You know, so okay, there's sometimes you feel like you're being placated. So this goes into the argument that a lot of Republicans say the Democrats just use black people. So we want to make sure it doesn't go to that. They go, okay, black folks, you're right. You're right. We'll make fun of ourselves for several hours tonight, and then next year we'll fuck you over again. So just as long as something changes. So it's easy to say all these idiots. We're just gonna tell them that yeah, sure, yeah, we're wrong, yeah, you're right, and then move right along, continue to do the same thing. So in order to, we have such a short attention span now. You just hope that this continues, or at least the pressure continues that actual change can happen. I mean, we're already upset when politicians say they're gonna do something and then never do it, and then just talk about it enough. So hopefully it doesn't just get talked about.
Yeah. Last thing on this is that other than the stapler being near JR's head, what is that? That's a new graphic. Here, show it again. Doesn't that look like a stapler next to
Yeah,
it?
it does look like a stapler.
Okay. Anyway, last thing on this is that look, for people who don't get it, like, look, there's a lot of African Americans in the movies. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't know what they want, right? It's the mindset, right? So there's African American roles. There's Latino roles, right? There's roles for other groups of people, right? But ironically, other than Will Smith, you hardly ever get a leading man who's black who isn't there to be black, but just to be a person.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good point.
And so I think that's the real underlying problem here.
Yeah, I think that Chris Rock also made a really good point about how certain categories are segregated based on gender. So best leading actor, best leading actress, and he's like, why can't we just include them all in one group, right? Like, why? How weird would it be if you had best supporting black actor, right? It would be absurd. So it's interesting that we have that kind of segregation when it comes to male and female actors, like as if we're like they're built so differently when it comes to acting that they need their own categories. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Oh yeah, and to be fair, also Denzel Washington. Denzel and Will Smith are allowed to be just people. Everybody else has to fill a role.